going to be showing you how to make a simple off-shoulder top. These are the measurements you'll be needing for the top: the upper bust measurement, arm circumference, top length, and the sleeve length. So this is a pre-cut top for my sister, but I'm going to be showing you how to cut this pattern on another piece of uncut fabric. So this is it. I'm going to be showing you guys how to cut this pattern using the measurements I showed you guys previously. So I'm going to be taking the bottom length. This is not necessary to do first, and something you have to note is that the fabric is placed on fold. I'm cutting out just the front part now. Front part and the back part are actually the same, so it doesn't matter whether you this front or back. You're going to use the front or back to cut the front or back. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, let me just say this is the front, so we're going to use the front to cut out the back because they're the same. So now from the selvage, I'm going to measure up 22 inches long because that is the length of the top. This 22 inches is plus the hemming allowance and plus the folding allowance at the top where the elastic is going to pass through. So I'm going to square up this line 22 inches long as the total length of the top plus the hem allowance also. So when I'm done squaring out this line, I'm going to take out the measurement of my upper bust. My upper bust is 30. I'm going to be dividing this measurement by 4. So when I divide this 30 by 4, that is 7.5 inches. But I'm not going to be using 7.5 inches directly because of the gathers. Because of the gathers I'm going to get from adding the elastic. So I'm going to be adding a few inches more, so I'm going to make it 13 inches long. That's pretty much considering that this is placed on fold and I'm going to cut out another back piece. So I'm marking out the 13-inch mark now. This is considerably very large than my upper bust, but when I had the elastic, it's all going to be scrunched up and going to form nice gathers. So after marking out 13 inches, I'm going to go to the selvage, that's the hem of the fabric, and I'm going to mark out the width of the hem. The width of the hem, you can also make it 13 inches if you want a rectangle shape for the top, but I want an A-line top, so I'm going to make it 20. You can make it more so that if you want your A-line to be more pronounced, but 20 is fine by me, so I'm just going to connect it diagonally, the 13-inch mark at the top to the 20-inch mark at the bottom. So when I do this now, I'm going to make the hem allowance and the folding allowance at the top for the elastic. I'm going to make them straight. As you can see, it's a diagonal line right now because of that line I connected the 13 inches mark to the 20 inches mark. So now I'm going to mark 1.5 inches down because that is my folding allowance at the top. So I'm going to square this line out and I'm going to straighten it. As you can see, it's diagonal now. So I'm going to straighten it so that when you fold it, it's going to be nice without any unnecessary crease. So I've turned the 1.5-inch line now. So now I'm showing you guys the diagonal line again. Okay, fine. We have to straighten this line to make it lay very nice and flat. So now I'm drawing the straight line. I'm going to connect it from that 1.5-inch mark. So that's the straight line, so that when I'm sewing this, you understand it properly, so that when I fold it, it doesn't have any unnecessary crease. So now I am going to do the same thing for the bottom. On the bottom, I'm going to mark 2 inches up because that's the allowance I gave for the hem. I'm going to mark 2 inches up and I'm going to square this out. After squaring this out, I'm going to draw a straight line like I did at the top. So now this is all for the top. Very simple and straightforward. No pattern needed, just lines and lines and lines and lines. So that is all. So now we're going to be cutting the sleeve. This is how your top pattern should look like. I'm so sorry it didn't show well in the video. I'm going to show you maybe by the end of the video how the top pattern should look like when you cut it out. Then you're going to cut this out and you're going to place it on another piece of folded fabric and cut out the back, because this is just the front. You also have to cut out the back. The back is the same as the front. So now I'm just going to turn this fabric the other way around to show you how to cut the sleeve, because I'm not cutting it out, I'm just showing you guys how to do it. I've already cut out what I need, so I'm going to show you guys how to cut the sleeve. So my sleeve roundness is 10 inches. My arm circumference, that was what I used in the measurement, is 10 inches, but because this is on fold, I'm going to divide that 10 inches by 2, so that is going to be 5 inches. But because of I'm also going to add an elastic to the sleeve, I'm going to make it a little bit more than 5 inches. So I'm going to make it, let's just make it double. So I'm going to make it double of my arm circumference, so that's 10 inches. So I'm going to mark out the 10 inches line, and now I'm going to mark out the length of the sleeve. The sleeve length is 10 inches also. A beautiful coincidence. So the sleeve length is 10 inches also, so I'm going to just mark that out. So after I square up the sleeve length with my small ruler, I'm now going to measure the hem length, how long or wide I want my hem to be. The hem width, actually, not the hem length, the hem width. So I'm going to mark out my hem width. My hem width is going to be 13 inches. You can make yours more, you can make it less if you want, but 13 inches is fine by me, so I'm going to use 13 inches. I'm going to square that down, draw a diagonal line and square that down. So I also have an A-line sleeve. So you're going to cut this out and you're going to place it on another piece of folded fabric and then cut out the second sleeve. You don't really have to do that straight line thing we did for the top, because it's also diagonal line and you're also going to have to fold it, but you don't have to do this also for the sleeve, because we're not going to, well, I'm going to explain this when I'm sewing it. So now it is time to explain how to cut the spaghetti strap. I'm sure most of us should know how to cut a spaghetti strap, but I'm just going to explain it for the sake of this tutorial. So my spaghetti strap is going to be 12 inches long, because the off shoulder is pretty low and 1 inch wide. You can make yours less wide or more wide if you want. I wouldn't advise you to make it more wide, but you can make it less wide. So I'm going to mark out 13 inches. That's half-inch allowance down and half-inch allowance up. So that's a total of 1 inch extra to the 12 inch. So that's 13 inches. And I'm going to mark out 2 inches. You know, I'm going to have to still fold the strap. So, and I'm going to join it. So I'm going to add half-inch on both sides. So in allowance. So that's going to be 3 inches wide and 13 inches long. So when I fold this, it's going to be 1.5 inch, but then I'm going to sew in half-inch on the seam allowance, so it's going to make the spaghetti strap 1 inch. So this is just a simple top. That is the end. So this is how the top should look like after you're done cutting it. This is the spaghetti strap, the left and right sides of it, and then this is the off shoulder sleeve, the left and right side of it also. Now we're going to be going to the sewing machine. We're going to start from the top, the main top, not the sleeve or the spaghetti strap, the main bodice. So we're going to be using closing up that 1.5 sewing allowance we gave at the top for where the elastic is going to pass through. You're going to want to make this wide enough so that the elastic passes through very easily. Now you can see how the folding here has no crease or excess or less. It's just perfect. So now we're going to be attaching a safety pin to one end of the elastic. This elastic is 12 inches long. That's my bust measurement, which is 30 minus divided by 2 minus 3, so that's 12. So now I'm going to pass the elastic through this opening. We're going to make sure that the elastic doesn't go past the end of the fabric because we don't want that to happen. So when it is just right inside the fabric, we're going to stitch it down. After we're done stitching it down, we're going to pass the elastic through the rest of the fabric till it comes out at the other end. So when it does come out at the other end, you want to pin it down and take it to the sewing machine and do the same thing. Stitch it down so that it doesn't go back, because that's the last thing you want happening right now. For that elastic to retract back into that hole, you don't want that to happen. So when we're done doing this, we're going to do it for the back also. Now that we're done doing it for the back, we're going to pin the front and the back pieces together, right sides facing each other. I'm going to pin both side seams, and then we're going to sew it on a 0.5-inch sewing allowance. When you're done sewing both sides on a 0.5-inch sewing allowance, this is what it should look like. It should look like this. So now we're going to move on to the sleeve. We're going to do the same exact thing we did to the main bodice to the sleeve. We're going to be folding the upper side where the elastic is going to pass through on a 1.5-inch sewing allowance. So yeah, I'm going to show you the difference in the folding. You see that first one we did, it was just straight and flat. You see this one, there's an excess at the other side. There's an excess at the back. And that's because we didn't make it straight like we did for the top. So now on the bottom too, after doing the hem, there's an excess to, we have to trim this off on both sides. We don't have to do any trimming on the main bodice because we actually cut the allowance of the main bodice to be straight. We didn't do that for here, so that's why we have to trim. So you have to do this on the other sleeve also. So now we're going to be passing the elastic through. This elastic length is about 7.5 to 8 inches. So now we're going to be doing exactly the same thing we did to the top, stitching the elastic down. Now we're going to join the side seam of the sleeve together. We're just going to bring one end of the sleeve to the other end of the sleeve and pin it down. When you're pinning down your side seams, remember not to put any excess fabric under. So always stretch out the fabric on the elastic so that no excess fabric is caught under the seam allowance. When you're done sewing the sleeve, this is what it should look like. Remember to do this to the second sleeve also, because you're not having one sleeve on the top, you're having two. So when we're done doing the sleeves and the top, we're going to join the sleeves and the top together. We're not going to be joining this on the side seams because of the bulk, and my machine cannot handle that bulk right now. So we're going to do right sides facing each other, and we're going to join them just few inches away from the side seam on both sides. So we're going to join it on the right side of the side seam and the left side of the side seam. We're going to do this for the other sleeve also. So now we're going to take the spaghetti strap, right sides facing each other like we always do. Sew it on the 0.5-inch sewing allowance and clip off the threads. And use your scissors to trim off the excess sewing allowance. Silly me, I tried this in a thread clipper because I couldn't find my scissors. So I had to pause the video and look for my scissors. Found my scissors and then I clipped it off. So now we're going to be turning the spaghetti strap to the right side. I don't have a loop turner, so I'm using my chopsticks. It was a little bit hectic because I wasn't using the right tool. If you have a loop turner, that's a bonus. Finally, I've brought out my sleeves. So now I'm going to join it to the bodice. We're going to join it. So you're going to take your tape measure and measure 2 inches away from the side seam, because you don't want it to fall like the off shoulder. You want it to sit directly on your shoulder. So you're going to measure it and place it 2 inches away from the side seam on both sides. So you're going to do this to the left and right spaghetti straps. When you're done folding the spaghetti straps, you should also fold the hem of the main bodice. Then you should have something that looks like this at the end.